get on early with the why. Why the hell are you trying to change this? Why the hell are you creating something new? And that's the single biggest problem in every organization that I see every time I join. When we do transformation program, people don't understand what they are in for and what's in it for them.
Yeah.
They don't get it. Like, oh yeah, we changed the full way this structure is going to work now. What's in it for me? That's a very important aspect, I think, is to create safety and security within your team, is to be very much aware of why we change things.
Today, we are joined by Alexis. He's a highly accomplished Chief Information Officer and Technology Leader with over 20 years of experience driving business performance and growth across industries like retail, e-commerce, life sciences, and mining. Alexis is renowned for bridging the gap between digital and business needs, leveraging technology to unlock value, and leading transformative change through data-driven decision, automation, and process improvement. With a proven track record in FTSE 100 and NASDAQ organizations, Alexis has spearheaded digital strategies, built robust technology functions, and strengthened cybersecurity frameworks in regulated environments. Known for an entrepreneurial mindset and a passion for customer-centric innovation, Alexis is a multilingual, globally experienced leader who thrives on creating partnerships and accelerating growth. We're really excited to delve into your insights today, Alexis. Welcome to Our Change Shift Happens. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. We're here to talk about tech.
Yeah,
we are here to talk about tech, and hopefully you.
Yes, that's kind of what we're really interested in, isn't it, really? We're here to talk about your achievements, but we're also really here to talk about how you got here.
And with that, I guess those pivotal moments in your career as you look back, are there key moments that stand out for you as pivotal in your career that have had maybe the larger impacts or taking you down a path of big impact that's brought you to where you are today?
Yeah. Definitely. I think for me, the biggest change has been the moment that I switched from being individual contributor to moving into team leadership, people management, but also starting to look a little bit further above the keyboard on what I do. In a way, I think as my career really divided in two parts. Really, that first part is about a bit less than 10 years of my life. And then the rest up to now is really that. And it's the change from focusing on being an individual contributor. You do development, you fix something, you're in support, you're in change, or whatever you do. Whatever this is, software, hardware, doesn't really matter. And at some point, one of my leader, actually, Stephen Udvari at the time for Novartis, was coming to Switzerland where I was to say, look, the reality is I came here to find my replacement. When I'm going back after the international assignment, I need to find the person who's going to manage that service. Would you be interested in the job? And I hesitated for quite a while because being a consultant at the time, contractor, above and beyond the money is the freedom.
Yeah.
To choose your assignment, to say, I want to work on that. I don't want to work on that. I want to work with these people, not these people. And my fear was starting to be a bit locked into a kind of a format. But my CIO at the time, Elke Helbrecht, fantastic woman working in life science in Switzerland, came to me and said, look, there's two trains on the station right in front of you right now, exactly in these words. I'm not saying any of these trains are not going to leave. I'm just saying there's one train when you join us, you start to lead a team, you lead change, you impact the organization, and you can start to grow. Or the other train, which is still there, probably for you, is continue to be a single contributor, working as a contractor, deliver tech. It's not about making a choice which is life and death. It's about you deciding what do you want your career to look like. Yeah. And I think the reason why it's been such an impactful challenge is, yes, because it led me to where I am, but also somebody helping me to raise the nose a little bit above the keyboard and say, well, there is much more about business and technology than just getting things working, implementing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that when you made the move from consultant into a permanent role?
Pretty much, yeah.
In a company like Novartis, when there's such a huge dependency on technology, what skills and what tools were you looking to put into your toolbox outside the keyboard, as you put it, that you were looking down on? What were the key things that you were looking at going, I probably need to add this skill to develop in this area? What was it that you were looking for?
I think as a starting point, and I hope this is the case for a lot of young technologists, this was not where I am right now. I never thought for a million years I'll be where I am right now. I think it's half accident, half little star above your head.
Yeah.
But I think nevertheless, I think you make your own luck, you make your own things. So to your point, I think first part, we are in engineering here. First part is solid foundation engineering, particularly technologists like me and evolving from being a single contributor to where I am. I have been led by technologists and I have been led by business people. Yeah. I know which one I prefer as a technologist, somebody who speaks my language, who understands what I'm doing. And the people for whom I had the most respect, trust, and really genuinely a bond, a professional bond with were people that understand technology deeply, not just as, this beautiful software and bits of kits over there can drive revenue for our stakeholders. All of that is nice. It's on the paper for everyone, but somebody who can really say, you know what, if we work on automation with integration there, with that particular business, we can simplify that bit, help them gaining 2 hours on daily basis, 200 people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The person that can really link the dots in between. Like that, when you start to have a bit more of an engineering conversation, it can still be in the room with you. So for me, solid engineering foundation is not a negotiation in our domain. You need to understand what you talk about, not just in a fluff, but in real. Yeah. I think something that has always been ingrained in me is problem solving. I'm an engineer at mine. I've always been like that. Like a lot of us in my basement when I was young, I broke VHS reader and rebuilt it because I can understand how it works. This mic really close to me give me the same feeling right now. I want to understand why this is so close to my face and it couldn't be further and try to find a solution to it. So problem solving is something that is in our industry, in technology particularly, super important. If you're not interested to resolve problem, what the hell are you doing in this industry? We crave on that every day. Adaptability is another one. I think this is one of the biggest challenge of our world nowadays. The only certainty is things change all the time. COVID demonstrated that to us. The current social economic context give us that. Also education give us that. It changed all the time. The capacity of technologists is about adapting to what is changing around them. Like we talk about the context, the regulation, the social economics, people, education, talents availability is the same problem. But then after what has helped me to grow from single contributor to where I am today is appreciating that business acumen is paramount, essential. You can be a great single contributor. You can be a great program manager, project manager. If you understand technology is working, the applications, you can sing in a single way, isolate you in Oracle, in SAP, or whatever product you want to isolate you, because it's about the team you're around. You spend a couple of years, boom, it's in there. Now, if you want to start to work around business partnership, if you want to start to understand transformation, if you want to understand how to implement change, if you don't understand how business work, and I'm not saying, and this is something that I'm very passionate about, I'm not saying a specific industry. I'm saying business in general. What is the job of finance? What's the job of HR? What is the job of the most annoying people in the world? Audit, regulation, lawyers, legals. What is their role in the organization? Until you understand what is driving them, you are going to be contacted to fix their laptop and their cell phones. But there's much more to technology than that. There's so much more.
There's so much more. I agree with you. I think it's learning not just how the business works, but how you work with people in those areas. I think that's definitely hugely important. Yeah, I would agree with you. So you mentioned that in order to be a really great technology leader, you've got to have an engineering background. But let's say you are, a developer and you're aspiring to a CIO role. I think you've made it clear that you want, you should probably get some business acumen in order to be able to climb that ladder. But what if you are a business person? What could you do to get yourself ready for a CIO role? Like, let's say you're really good at business, but you don't have a engineering background. Do you think that that's, short of going and learning how to code, what would be your advice to somebody in that position?
What I meant earlier by having solid engineering function or solid engineering foundation is not exclusive to people that don't come from IT engineering background, as an example. I think more and more, and since I study, it hasn't changed, it has just increased. IT is a broad church. It's a very broad church.
Yeah.
When I studied at the time, I was like, why do I do so much math? Why do I spend so much time trying to understand the curve and the linear thinking and the equation and blah, blah, blah? I was like, I want to be an IT guy.
Yeah.
Just before that, I did technical degrees. And I was like, I spend my day coding.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's great. That's what I wanted to do. Got good result. And my dad said, oh, you know what? You need to go to engineering school. We can't let you stop there. We need to push you on to get there. Like, yeah, okay, let's go on. And I moved from 2 years of playing with tech on daily basis and suddenly being like, math. And I was like, wow. And it's a way to forge your mind to resolve problems and learn to resolve problems. But at the time, I think I didn't really realize, like a lot of us, where data was going to be. Nowadays, you want to be a data scientist. If you're not a good math person behind, understand, probabilities, etc. You're not going to be good at this job, definitely. Yeah. So I think IT is a broader church than purely technology. So actually, people moving from economic background back into IT, especially if you want to work in product management, etc., it's a great place to be. We see a lot of cybersecurity people now emerging, coming from background with army, etc., because they have great people coming from army that have been exposed to very sensitive information, but also in complex technology, and have a different angle to apply them than we do. I think I am a big believer that mixing the two worlds is the best thing to do. For a long time, IT was on one side, business was on the other. There was kind of a wall in between where people were just throwing kind of a little message. I need that. Can you help me? And IT saying, no.
Please restart your computer.
Which is still a phrase that I use on a daily basis, to be honest with you. The real world of making things happen, that's a skill for me also, is by putting everybody in one place in the middle to pitch in on every angle. An IT person, in general, will have an angle of an IT person. I will see a comments box, a comment button in the middle, and a closing button on the top right. Where a marketing person that has worked with a customer in retail for years is going to tell you, well, look, it'd be great to have the name of the person on the right side, and a little welcome message and thanking them for all their shop during the year. But you know what? Also, the management, the finance people on the other side is going to tell me, well, can we make the message better for our big key customer? Because we are a luxury brand. We don't want a simple, basic design that you ITC. We want something sexy that's going to, make them feel that the reason why they spent 20 grand with us last year is because we are a luxury brand. So that's where, for me, the mix between business and IT is coming from. Is, I'm appreciative of the fact that if I do things myself, I probably do them very boringly. In a very IT way, binary way, in a way.
Just see the CIO or the technology leader as a business leader whose domain expertise is technology.
Correct.
And I think the businesses that are getting either a better return on investment from their technology and environment, estate department, are those where that leader has taken on, to your point, the responsibility of going, I'm going to understand how procurement works, not just how to fill in an RFP. Like, what's driving you to ask these questions? I'm going to sit with the FD and understand how a P&L is constructed, what mechanisms you can pull, what levers you can pull, and that you can't, rather than just going, please can I have another 5 million because we're doing this project? That's okay, but what about the sales income? What about the revenue generation? What's happening in the world? We've been through an election, there's wars affecting the economic environment, there's social economic pressure, there's all this stuff. So the P&L just can't be continually invested in. However, when that person, to your point, has spent time in other areas of the business and understands the levers that HR are looking to pull, the challenges with talent and attraction and diversity and thought leadership, and the future generations coming into the business, not just technology, those that have got that broader appreciation, that broader church of thinking, that's where technology sits at the table. And exactly to your point, I believe, contributes to the entire business discussion. Not, this is the business strategy, please put in enough laptops to make it happen. It's, well, hold on, how is all this? How's all this pinning together?
I definitely say what I've noticed is that technology, rather than just being kind of the back office support, it's moved into the technology is either an enabler or it's quite a lot of organizations, the strategic product, as in, so CIOs who are able to engage with the business model, understand the business model, and then shape their technology organizations to deliver that, will benefit the company at bottom line. So I think that would be that's definitely a good
Your 2
clarification.
points are, I think, very valid. I like what you just said, which is operating model, the organizational operating model. And the role of a CIO is to create a technological operating model that this is purely technical or people that works well with the operational model of the organization.
Yeah.
And my model of operating in a mining organization, which is what we do, is very different than a retail organization, than a scientific organization where I was previously, or, you know, any other kind of organization like Apple or whatever. So the point that I'm trying to get to is, I think what has drastically changed over the last 20 years is technology has become super easy for you, for every people in the world. You know, you got at the fingertips of you. I was about to reach my phone, which for once,
which we've all
which for once is not right in front of me.
Very unusual, isn't it?
Completely. I feel almost disconnected in French right now.
We all feel weird, right? Not having it within arm's reach.
You know, you can get on your iPhone for 99p on any store of your liking. And because we say Apple, we call it by iTunes here. You can buy for 99p an application on SAP to approve the holidays of your users, of all your team. 99p, boom, you connect it, you enter your credential on SAP, boom, you get it. That takes you what? Minute for a fast one, you know, for the fast my kids, which are, you know, tech generation nowadays. Probably 30 seconds. How long would it take me as a leader to craft an application like that?
So true.
Month. And hundreds of budgets, definitely. Big numbers on budget. So that's where my conundrum as a leader is as an IT person. I got a business that comes constantly to me saying, look, I got this vendor who promised me the moon over there. This beautiful AI application on big data, big on dematerialized journal and all. I make all the buzzwords in one list and tells you it's going to resolve my problem. Why don't we have that in the house? That is my challenge on day-to-day basis. And that is a business problem. This is not an IT problem.
And how do you explain that salesperson is effectively selling them a dream, that they probably released a beta version of that particular app that they're going to use you to test and improve, and that it might take a lot more money, time, resources to implement and to maintain. I think educating the business, I get your point, is probably one of the key roles of a CIO these days, is educating them on technology, what the art of the possible.
Navigate the landscape.
And navigate, exactly. So if we can just kind of take it back a little bit, looking back on your career, what do you wish that you had known earlier that would have made your journey a little bit easier? Because you're clearly an industry agnostic CIO. You know, what are some of the things that you wish you had done differently or that you'd known earlier that might have helped you along a little bit better?
The power of human feedback. The power of human feedback. And I think it's a two-way street, to be honest. You know, having a mentor, having somebody that can sit you down and say, come on, sit down for a minute here. Do you really think that was realistic? Do you really think this is what you should have pushed for, etc.? Having somebody you can sit down with and is going to tell you the truth, nothing but the truth, unfiltered, and bring you back to your place sometimes is something that I find that for a very long time, and being an introvert myself and being, you know, a techie. I'm a techie. I'm happy to be home with my kids, my dog, my wife, countryside, be in peace with it. Far away from human technology on the weekend, on holiday, or whatever. Nowadays, my phone is glued to me all the time. That's true. But, you know, at heart, I sometimes like to disconnect from that. And I think a lot of technologists are like that, very binary, very, center on technology. And I think this is one of the things that I've learned midpoint in my career is the importance to have unfiltered human feedback, having somebody regularly sitting next to you and say, look, we got a town hall, blah, blah, you want one of the panelists. We did that at Novartis, actually. We got town halls, we got, person from finance, person from IT, blah, blah, talking about something for half an hour. And then you get the communication team off the ground saying, well, town hall over, everybody leave the room, sit down for 5 minutes, we do a quick debrief. And it's great to have people like that saying, the way you interjected to somebody, would have been good to wait that a person completely finish. And then what we talked earlier before the podcast start, where are your hands? What do you do? What is your posture? What do you look at people? Language selections, in an age where information is power, it's really a lot about how do you manage this information on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's that's criticism capability is vital in your career evolution, to have somebody that effectively is going to sit down and give you a proper good feedback.
Yeah.
How did you identify your mentors? It sounds like there's been a couple of pivotal people in your journey. Are they people that have been in the business and stood out to you, the people that have approached you, people that have been recommended? Has it been a combination? How have those people come into that role for you?
I think there's been 3 categories of people.
Okay.
There have been mentors which were work mentor, there's a moment when you in your career when you start to look at growth, and I'm a big believer that 90% of your growth is on you. It's not on your boss. Don't expect your company to grow you. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying you're a number everywhere, but that's kind of a reality, especially when you work in big organization. Novartis for me was about 100,000 employees.
Wow.
At the time. It was a big organization. And my CEO at the time was very clear and was saying, your development is on you. So you need to position yourself on asking your question, okay, do I have a successor? Is he trained? Is he ready? When? What do I do to train him? But then getting back to your boss and saying, well, look, I am here. This is what I want to evolve to. This is what interests me. What are the opportunities around? And then saying, look, when I have an idea, I want to look at this, and that. It's about working with your manager at the time and say, look, if I want to get there, and I'm a big believer that getting out of your comfort zone is what's going to help you. Exactly. So I've moved into, business information management for finance application at that time. So it was much more than what I was doing before, which was purely project management for quite a while. And at the time, I said to my boss at the time, look, who can I work with on a regular basis, having a coffee for half an hour and get some info coming to me? How finance work in that division? What is important to them? What are the strategic objectives, et cetera, et cetera? So that's the first thing for me is in your organization, find people, there's this kind of weird feelings that we don't have time. That's true. I don't have a lot of time, but I always have 15 minutes for a coffee. If one of my guys, Joshua, in my current company, is a young guy that just started in finance 2 months ago, say, do you have 15 minutes? Why? I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions. And this 15 minutes transform in an hour almost. We talked about everything. What is important, how I develop, what do I do? So there's this kind of thinking that leaders don't have time. If you give them the opportunity, we're genuinely happy to spend time to help people grow and understand how to get next step. And that's a duty almost. The reality is I'm not going to be the last one. What I leave behind me, when I leave, somebody else will need to take the job. So it's always good to be ready for the next person. I think the next one is also clients. Don't hesitate to ask for feedback to clients. They're usually really happy to give you feedback. there's
sometimes you don't even have to ask them.
Choose carefully. But it's great to have people from the other side of the fence. But I work in consulting for quite a while. And what is interesting in consulting is to have the feedback from the other side. Look, the last pitch, we failed. We didn't sell something to you. Was that the pitch? Was that me? Wasn't we aware earlier? Forget the camera, forget the recording, forget the emails and all these meetings for a minute. I'm not asking you specifically about my pitch. Help me to grow. And I think the fear in people is always to look weak when you ask this kind of question. Like everybody else, I don't always ask that question, because there is sometimes a position when you need to look like the leader to get people on with you. But there's no shame behind the door after to say, look, how did that go on? Was that good? Why? What can I do that can help me to grow? Am I dressed the right way? Am I talking the right way? Am I here when you need me? Am I? And earlier in my career, that's the kind of feedback I have from my management, which is, look, you told us you're going to do this. Why is it not there? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So say what you're going to do and do it. That's the thing. As a leader, when I surround myself with people, that's what I'm looking for. People will say they're going to do something, they do it. If I have to come back on and on and on and on again, it doesn't work. And I think the last kind of feedback and, hand on heart yet honesty, I have a coach. I have a professional coach. It costs a bit of money, costs a bit of time, but it's been 3 years I work with her. And genuinely, you know what? This is the person that ground me the most. She's brutal, literally. I got this job, CIO at Endeavor, and when I signed it, I, get to see her, which is rare. Usually we do that online. But for once, I got to see her. I took a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses and say, look, great, blah, blah, blah. She was like, yeah, that's great, fantastic. I was like super excited, talking about, this, exactly. She was very calm on the other side of the table at one point, look at me and say, no, what's next? Hang on a second.
let me
25 years of evolution. I just took the job, the job in IT, the one that you want.
Yeah.
And you're just telling me what's next. You're like, yeah, whatever. You get a job now. It's been a while we work together. I know you're going to make it happen. You're going to adapt. You're going to critical thinking, blah, blah, blah. All of that's going to happen. But what's next? What do you want next? Yeah. Because it's always about preparing for the next one.
Yeah.
What's the next evolution? What's the next step?
I couldn't agree with you more. When we were very lucky just after we'd opened Work Digital, about 3 months in, we were fortunate to write a proposal for a big airport group, and we didn't win. And similar, we needed as much feedback as we could get. We're 3 or 4 months old as a business. And I did have a relationship with the procurement director, and it had nothing to do with how we looked. It had nothing to do with the maturity of our policies. They weren't strong enough. They weren't robust enough. The internal policies that we had, because there were 4 of us, of course they weren't. Mm-hmm. But the feedback that we got to take into every future pitch, our policies, our processes, our procedures are absolutely for a business of our size are nailed on. And if we'd just gone, oh well, of course we were never going to win that. We were 4 months old and it was our business. Had nothing to do with that. We were on a balanced scorecard, and when it came to the balanced scorecard, D&I green, ability to service green, but so did all the competitors. Yeah. It was the maturity of the policies, and they could only award 2 places. And I was thinking about how many things we would have lost if we hadn't have asked the question, because it was something that we could remedy straight away. And I did have, got another one now, but I did have a coach at the time. And I don't know if you find this, but they hold up a mirror.
Yeah.
And all you've got to do is just be honest around what you're seeing. And it can be incredibly difficult. And then it's the mirror if you want to look into it, or you can just slightly go off to the side. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's brilliant.
I really like what you've both said. And I really like the point around being brave enough to ask for feedback, because we don't, when you are a younger person and you're coming up in an organization, it's difficult to really know that this is available to you, or that this is something that would be encouraged by senior leadership. And I know certainly when I was coming up in the industry, it wasn't something I thought I could ask for. I grew up in a household where, with brutal honesty. My parents would always tell me the stuff that I did wrong, and not the stuff that I did right, but that's basically because they just wanted me to fix. They thought they were really being helpful. And you need both. You need kind of, positive reinforcement. But I think being brave enough to open yourself up to feedback, to challenge. But we don't really live or work in a culture where feedback is effectively given. I think if we're honest about that, right? I think if somebody asks you for feedback, people tend to, what do we call it? A praise sandwich. And it's kind of like, the criticism bit, or the constructive criticism, it tends to be like the very thin slice of salami, it's like with lots of very thick bread on either side. So we just all kind of go along thinking. So I think it does require a bit of bravery from both the person asking for feedback, but also the people who are giving the feedback. And I think the responsibility is on senior leadership in an organization to foster that type of culture.
Correct.
Would you agree?
Correct. I think the first thing that comes to mind about that for me is culture. Yeah. First of all, I'm French originally. I worked in Belgium, Switzerland, UK, US, travel, definitely. I consider myself a culturally fluent leader. And I think what it brings to you, and we are in the United Kingdom, in Britain, we are in London, where people say sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are. So you can tell me how much time a day you're saying it. It's probably about 100. So people apologize all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that looking back on my career, that has been very foundational to me. My boss, when I switched from individual contributor to leader, was an American. Mm-hmm. Elke Helbrecht, my CIO, was Swiss.
Right.
Then I got a German colleague next to me giving me feedback. So we got around there 3 completely different kind of people, and actually a Brit in the team also. So you got the British give you like, let's go and have a pint and have a chat. Then you got the American that sits you in a room very formally, give you free good points because you have to, everything is green for Americans. Everything has to be a success. But then after you have also the kind of unfiltered truth
conversation.
And then you get the Swiss person in the middle that comes with, this really good capacity to always make a balanced feedback that is fair and positive for everyone. Yeah. So to your point about family, I think the reality is your parents will, I got the chance to have both sides of the equation. My dad was very no-nonsense kind of person, really much I inherited of him, definitely. And my mom had this very maternal way of cajoling and trying to, if you really think this is hard, well, maybe effectively you should reconsider. Well, I had my dad on the other side saying, smack behind my head, come on, get on with it, in a way. So I think growing up was that can try and find a middle between all the two of that. But I think in the career, I agree with you. This is the role of the leadership to do that. This is our role to make ourselves available. My current CFO, which is my boss, is always very clear with me. Managing people, not my level, but lower, is 20% of your time.
Yeah.
At my level, is 50% of my time.
Yeah.
I spend half of my week in one-on-one with my people, in team meetings, in coaching session, in development section, in trying to understand with the business where things are going for them, et cetera, et cetera. So the job is people related first, then technology for me nowadays. Yeah. So understand the needs of your team, the individual need, what drives you is a skill you need to develop as a leader very early if you want to start to go up the ladder and grow bigger team. Because one or two person, when you work, you're in the UK, you work in a startup, you're British, you work with people that speak the same language and same humor, etc. When you start to manage 5-6 people, one of which is British, Swiss, American, blah, blah. That's the moment where you need to know the difference between what is a joke, let's talk about sarcasm. Yeah. That starts to be a bit more complicated. Yeah. And when you manage a team, 20 people in India, 100 people in the US, 20 people in Europe, this is the moment where the mental gymnastics start to be there. So as a leader, understand what drives your individuals, what bring them forward. It's about creating also your own, I think it's also a lot about creating your own, personas, what kind of person you are also driving.
There is probably a distinction to be made between culture with a capital C, as in the cultural differences, but geographic cultural differences, but also kind of, I'm going to say a lowercase c, culture of a business organization. And there is a bit of adjusting that both kind of the organization and the employees have to do. And I think on the topic of sort of, we've talked a lot, we've talked about you not winning that proposal, we've talked about you asking for feedback and being open to not doing something well, kind of leads me on to the question of, and then tying that back into culture, it feels like you kind of have to be comfortable with failure. So time to kind of really get vulnerable now. Have you ever failed?
Yeah, every day, I think is the answer. Is for me, failure is not. First, we need to start by taking out the stigma of failure, which I think, slowly our society and our ways of thinking is getting to. People, I'm no stranger to that. I probably was, all my career, mistake, feedback from a mentor, blah, blah, blah. Thinking like, oh my God, how could I just miserably fail like that? Well, how could I forget about that? And I think we need to see, in a way, like we see learning in micro learning is the right thing to do nowadays. Yeah, it's really what people are in right now. I think we need to see failure in the same way, micro failure any day, to get more comfortable with the fact that you fail. I can give you 100, but I could tell you, Mr. Dyson's, the guy who did the vacuum cleaner, more than 5,000 trial before getting the right vacuum cleaner. And, would he have stopped at 4,999? Would we have actually one of the best vacuum, most expensive product, well-designed, pretty vacuum? We need a pretty vacuum, that's my point. But anyway, it's a product that works. So I think it's really that in career is valid on both sides. It's the acceptance that failure is fine. Get on with it. Yeah. It's okay. That's my point as a leader. When somebody mess up, and that happened no later than this morning. I had a big cock up from one of my team. I said, you know what? No, I understand where it is. Go and fix it. Yeah. And we communicated and everybody's like, oh yeah, okay. Fixed. It's all right. So you get on with it. But the reason why failure is such a stigma, I think my personal belief, I take 2 cents with that, is schools system, the way we are, educated at heart is test, test, test. You do A, B, C, D, F in the UK. Here, we do 1 to 20 in France, as an example. And if you get a 5 out of 20, you fail. If you get a 10 out of 20, you fail. You get a 15 out of 20, you partially succeed, but it's still a little bit of a fail. If you got a 20 out of 20, you succeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you get 19, is it a failure? Is it not?
Yeah.
So I think we are drilled since a very young age, test, exam, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying test and exam are not good. This is the reality outside.
Yeah.
You want a job, you're going to have to make an interview. If you get the job, you succeed. If you don't get it, you fail.
Yeah.
You need to be ready for failure.
Yeah.
The problem is our way of educating people is really towards success. You need to succeed in tests. You need to succeed in this exercise, this, things you need to write, except this essay. So I think we need to, and I'm a parent of 2 children, Eloise, which is 11, Oliver, which is 8. So I'm trying to ingrain in them that, I did my spelling check yesterday. It was 5 out of 10, Daddy. Is it bad? I'm like, yeah, it's a fail. But is it bad? No, it's not.
Yeah.
8 years old. You're learning.
Yeah.
My 11 daughter can spell embroidery.
Yeah.
I can't. And she's like, is it a success? Yeah. Relative to your age, at the age of 11, be reading like a 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a success. Now, what does that mean for you in the long term is your capacity to appreciate that this is a strong skill set in you, but maybe some other need to be fixed. So that's an important one. So if we come back to the professional world, and as a leader, what I try to foster in my team is a culture and an environment. So not just me, but my leaders that works for me under, I have a leadership team of people that are very capable, but it's also about telling them, well, look, I know one of your guys failed. How did you handle that with him?
Yeah.
Did you give him the space to talk about it? Did you tell him it's all right? We learn from it. However, the point that is non-negotiable is you to learn from it.
Yes.
Repeating on and on the same mistake is the definition of madness. We need to stop that.
Yeah.
So that's about that, creating an environment where we can have this conversation on failure.
And have you developed habits and routines for your personal growth that have been game-changing along the way? Have there been certain systems or certain habits that you've put into your way of working, way of reflecting that have been pivotal to allowing you to be successful alongside accepting that failure is going to happen?
Early in my career, no. Probably later in my career, I started to develop a good routine.
Okay.
Having a routine, that's what works for me. I think everybody's slightly different, but I'm very Cartesian. I like things in right box, etc. So that's important for me. Yeah. So I'm up at 5.
Your 2025 calendar's already planned, which I find amazing.
This is in my job, like we discussed off camera before. Like my job is necessary. If I don't plan ahead, I don't have, you fly in 3 weeks and there's a board meeting right after. Yeah. Did you get your input ready for the board? Because when I come back from the flight, it's not going to happen. So it's going to be done before. So I'm up early in the morning. I do a very light routine of gym. It's half an hour. I'm not an athlete. I was better when I was younger, but nowadays my agenda is packed. So I try to get my half an hour in the morning, get my breakfast, get the rhythm, get the kids up, get on the way, etc. So creating this routine in my day-to-day life is helping me to stay on track. I'm more, thanks to that, I'm more, not just more resilient, but I have more discipline because I am in my routine. I am awful with my routine. I'm awful with my discipline, sorry. I'm awful with my resilience when I get out of my routine.
Yeah.
So right away. My brain doesn't work like that. If I'm not in my rhythm, I'm really derailing myself very, very early. You talked about reflection. This is one of the things I do, not talking about mindfulness here, because that's really not something to which I adhere. Might work for other people, doesn't work for me. But I tend to sit once a month, take a piece of paper. I have a book like this one, not Microsoft, another brand, where every month I put the name of the month, the year, and I just write down what are the bad things that happened that month.
Yeah.
And I write down the good things that happened this month, the big good things. It's not just for the year-end review with my boss and get my bonus in place, but it's also for me regularly to not forget to materialize on the paper the thing that sometimes fly away during the year and you forget about, like, oh, we developed this, we delivered this system, we delivered this change, we improved the life of the business here. And 12 months of the year, I travel about 10 to 11 in West Africa to see our teams, etc. times go really quickly.
Yeah.
You forget about things.
Yeah.
So it's for me, one of the things that helped me to keep on track to my later conversation is exactly that. I tend to apply the rules of the 1% improvement on my cycles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meaning my teams, let's try to do just a teeny bit better than last time. Our meeting Monday morning, we have an hour and a half with my leadership team. We digest everything. Like, let's try to do it 1% better. Your feedback, my feedback, the focus on our to-dos, etc. And that helps me a lot. But then one thing we may talk later also is learning. I tend to be a regular learner. I tend to focus on. I have headways in my on my phone.
Yeah,
Oh,
I spend an hour in the train every day in the morning. That's perfect timing to listen to the news. What happened in the world when the news in the morning on BBC 4 are over? Because I'm a big fan of BBC 4.
Yeah.
I tend to switch to headways, get a short version of a book, get a couple of key points. Interesting. I didn't know that. Or, oh yeah, that's something I already do. Ignore, move on. So being a continuous learner.
Yeah.
That's an essential when you move into, what's the business acumen, etc.
Yeah.
Broaden your horizons.
Continuous learning and continuous improvement is a very tech concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you say is kind of a personal philosophy or mindset shift that has had a lasting impact on your life? Is it the 1% learning or is it something else?
I'd go for the same as Steve Jobs, 90, something like that. It's one that I have evolved with my career because your outlook on project, on people, on business change a lot. I take a longer view on people than I was when I was younger and earlier in my career.
Yeah.
I was having a tendency younger in my career to be very binary with people. Works, doesn't work. Fix, doesn't fix. 1, 0, black, white.
Yeah.
Very IT.
Yeah.
Very Cartesian. And I think that's something that I've changed with the time. More realistically, is very strong with me over the last 5 years. I tend to, it's probably the age part of it, definitely. But I think I had the tendency in the past when things were not working to go and fix it. I was focusing on, that doesn't work. I'm going to get there. People fix the situation, fix the problem, fix the software.
Yeah.
That was what I was doing because I'm a fixer. That's what I am. And I think with the time, the way it changes exactly there is giving the space to people first to fail, but also to learn and give them a chance to get on with it. Because yes, as a leader, you cannot just, switch and replace all the time. You live with the people you have, but also appreciating that, I was in this place at one point also. So taking a longer view on people is something that definitely has changed a lot for me. And it's probably the leadership criteria that drives me the most today.
If I could just stick with this point just very briefly, in kind of transformations, in a business transformation type environment, you tend to have to make decisions on people quite quickly, right? When you're embarking on a transformation, you need to sort of make a decision very quickly around who's going to help you succeed on that journey, or who's not necessarily either willing or ready to go on that journey with the organization. So how do you balance that? How do you balance I suppose, taking a longer term view on people and their capabilities or their intentions, just in general, versus kind of making decisions as a leader on talent, specifically whether it's a transformational journey that you and the organization are embarking on, or you yourself are coming in as a leader and wanting to kind of shape the organization in your way. So it's a very specific question around kind of people and talent, if that makes sense.
There's two angles to that. And I think we covered the second one, which is you're there for a while, how you take on people. There's the new arrival kind of conversation. I think joining an organization, and me, I change role regularly over my career. Joining an organization is like what you said, is about identifying quickly, who are the influencer, who are the deciders, who are the people that just satellite around all of that. Who are your allies? Who can you work with? Who are you going to have to work with?
Yeah.
Who are you going to have to make change, to help understand the direction of travel has shifted? You need to come along with me. That's primary role when you join, and you can't afford to spend month and month on that because very quickly you need to hit the ground and run to a certain degrees. But I also tend to recenter myself around the idea that creating team is not a 5-minute exercise. Creating, a team culture, not organization culture, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is something that I leave to the powers of being in a way. But I think that the culture of a team the culture of a leader create the culture of a team, the culture of a team create the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
If you are a leader, we lead with empathy, with energy, with interest, with collaboration, we share. It's going to create a certain form of team. Naturally, people who are uncomfortable with that will migrate away from it.
Yeah.
And people who are attracted to that will come to you.
Yes.
So as you recruit, you will bring on people that can work in your culture. After that, is my way of seeing it the better than another? I'll leave that to history. It's not it's not me to decide of that. I have had enough little success in my career, if I wouldn't call that big success, but enough, success delivering change, transformation, evolution in teams to be able to say that there's got to be something in there that is all right. Otherwise, that wouldn't work. So I think that's what is important also is to not forgetting that creating teams doesn't take 5 minutes. It's minimum of a year, realistically. To just get people to trust you, because trust is not given, it's earned.
And
it's a long, you need to always have that in a long-term approach as a leader. It's not a 5 minutes job.
Yeah.
And is there a particular project or piece of transformation work that you've been involved in running or been a sponsor for that stands out in terms of its success, that left a lasting impact in your career journey? And if you look back, wow, that was a really special project that I'm proud of, that made real impact. And what was the shape and make of that?
One of my best transformative experience was with Novartis when we assembled basically multiple division services into one for the full organization.
Wow.
The reason why I always go back in my head on this one is because I think it's important to have an anchor in your career that tells you, I can do that. I can be that person.
Yeah.
You can fall in an organization that you don't align with the culture, you don't get on with people, whatever. And that happened. Again, failure, accept it, move on. But it's good to have an anchor point in the back in your career. And that has been a transformative and a foundational experience in me, because I've worked with people all over the globe on this. It took us pretty much a year and something to get people around the table and accept, let's stop working the old ways. Let's break silos and work all together into one team with business on board, finance on board, IT people on board, all together, creating one gigantic service that served the full organization.
Wow.
And that was very transformational in me, because it was the appreciation that there is a world behind the pure delivery of a service, of a technology for the business. So this has been very impactful for me, because it creates this vision of I can do that. That is feasible. And so I bring that experience from a very big organization that has, it's a pack bow. You want to make it move, you need to push. And it moves very slowly.
Yeah.
And then you can bring that into smaller organization like New Bamboo I work with, a kind of a speedboat that work in Ruby on Rails development, a think tank really in this domain, and you help them navigating the waters with the same mindset.
Yeah.
And that's what has driven me on this change.
And with that in mind, looking back on that Novartis program specifically, are there tips, methodologies, lessons learned and approaches that you draw back on now in those speedboat organizations to really deliver successfully?
Get on early with the why.
Okay.
Why the hell are you trying to change this? Why the hell are you creating something new? And that's the single biggest problem in every organization that I see every time I join. When we do transformative program, people don't understand what they are in for.
Right.
And what's in it for them.
Yeah.
They don't get it. You're like, oh yeah, we changed the full way this structure is going to work now. What's in it for me? And that's a very important aspect, I think, is to create safety and security within your team, is to be very much aware of why we change things. Since I joined my organization, we restructured the team completely. We didn't let go people. We hired actually more people.
Yeah.
But we structured the team very differently. We were very vertical. There was 2 leaders and about 48 people under there.
Right. Okay.
Which is really not the way first I lead, not very modern, etc. It's hard to connect with people under, because it's all hidden in a way behind 2 people. So we flattened down a lot the organization. So we promote people to new roles. We put cybersecurity directly under me, which helped a lot driving cybersecurity for the organization at the forefront all the way up to the board. But also it helped talent getting out of the weeds and get a little bit higher, create space, perspective in the long term, development, etc. So that has helped a lot. For me, also in change and transformation program, the most important thing is to align leadership. And I mean the word leadership very widely here.
Okay.
You know, I have between 50 and 60 people nowadays in my team. And it's not just aligning up, it's also aligning down.
Yeah.
Saying to my team, well, next month we're going to start that. This is the key message I need you to deliver to your team. As my leadership team, you know, your information is a power, and people have a tendency to use it as, you know what I heard, this is that. Forget about, you know, the chitty chat in the corridor. You are part of my leadership team. The key messages about this change, this transformation we're going to do in an area, small or big, doesn't matter. This is the key message. This is what I need you to hammer on the ground. Because what I want to avoid is people say, well, was not aware.
Yeah.
Not interested. It's not for me.
Yeah.
There is, in every single piece of big program, relatively large change we do, key messages that I want my team to deliver. Like that, on the ground, the guys know already what's in it for them right away. They are connected, they are engaged. And if the business come and say, oh, anyway, have you heard about this stuff? They can say, yeah, my boss talked about it. I'm aware of it. I'm part of it. I know what's my role to play.
Yeah.
That's, this alignment, I think, is really important. If you have resistance, deal with it early. Biggest problem in organization, you will start something, you're 3 months in the program, you have communications element, dashboard, digital stuff in the corridor, training on the way, everybody's hyped up, at the exception of one department that nobody ever talked with. Or we knew there would be a resistance in that size and nobody handled that. You know, resistance early. They can continue to resist after, but from the moment you engage with them, you prepare, you're ready ahead. So when you go in a town hall and somebody raises his hand and say, oh, I have a question. Oh my God. You're ready. You know, at least you already lined up this conversation. For me, transformation activities in team, in organization, in digital or any other sorts it's about putting the human in the middle. We all float, you know, in a way or another. Somebody tell me tomorrow, you know, we're gonna change the way we do travel in this organization rather than doing it directly yourself. You're going to go to a central service in India, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God. It's going to be a pain. I travel a lot. I spend a lot of time booking these things already with people. Is it going to be worse? If you don't manage my resistance early, I am not going to be an ambassador. I am going to be the other way around. Obviously, I'll try to be light with that. But the reality is we all have, let's call it Steve. We all have a Steve somewhere in the organization. Is like in any transformation, the person that don't want the change to happen. We are human. We don't like change. We don't like things to evolve. And if you don't deal with that early, it's going to get worse and worse. So put human in the middle.
I really like what you did with your organization in terms of flatten the structure a little bit, allow the talent to come up, you know, the talent that's hidden beneath the layers. I remember I tried to do that once, and some, you know, it was interesting. The younger team members absolutely loved it, saw the opportunity with it, grabbed it with both hands, and, you know, did what we talked about earlier, which is kind of put their hand forward and said, well, I want to, you know, instead of being in this role, I want to become a data analyst, a data scientist. The rest of the team, not the rest, but some of the leadership in that team just completely resisted that change. It just wasn't, they liked leading big teams. They liked to be in charge, and they liked to model the team after themselves, which was a little bit outdated. So they just didn't really like that change at all. And I think what you mentioned earlier is that, you know, people naturally, you kind of bring in your own culture as a leader, and people naturally either gravitate away or gravitate towards. And I do really like that. But when you are delivering kind of large scale transformations, and you just talked about it in terms of resistance to change, you talked about identify it early. So, and then manage it. Could you give us kind of a few tips around how to identify and then how to manage resistance within an organization? Do you have any really effective strategies for this in this area?
It's interesting because for these problems, I don't have a manifesto, a manual, because it's human. So it's going to be different every time. A lot of it, you're going to realize it. For me, in the process of creating your change, it's not for pretty much 90% of what I've done in the past is not top down. It doesn't come from, it's easier when it comes from the top management in a way.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy. I'm, especially being a C person nowadays,
Yeah.
you know, that when you come in the room and you say something, people listen a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's unfair. Unfortunately, suck it up. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So in a way, having a push top down help a lot, but 90% of change, transformation in organization don't happen like that.
Yeah.
The reality is there's people on the ground like me, like my team, that see something and say, we need to fix that. And the way to fix it is to change all of this. So you spend a lot of energy analyzing the problem and meeting people all the time, saying, what does that mean for you, for you, for you, for you? So you know where are the resistance as you are progressing, because you try to onboard everyone, embrace the change with you.
Yeah.
So at this moment is the moment that you need to deal with it right away. So the tips are, bring these people along in the meetings, you know, what is your steer code? What is your project meetings, etc.? Give me somebody in your team that can help me understand your stress, your frustration, your problem. Let's get along with it.
Yeah.
Certainly alienating them, put them on the side, is never going to work. That's the reality. You can ignore them. The only thing is going to be is boring even more.
Yeah.
So bring them on board in your team. Show them what's in it for them. What is it going to resolve? And after that, it can continue, but at least you've done it. You bring them, you really try to put them at the center of your problem.
I think this is very common, isn't it? We find everybody talks about, well, in the context of transformation, people do tend to come to the human element quite quickly and talk about people being kind of key lever in delivering successful transformations.
Comes back to something we were saying right at the beginning around, you know, that emotional intelligence, that empathy as a leader, to understand that you are going to have detractors and you are going to have people who are possibly understandably so worried for their job, or they've got an inherent belief that this is how it should be done. And for a lot of those people, they need to be sat down and understood, and then they can come forward. But equally being okay that not everyone is also right for that transformation as well. And that's also okay as long as it's dealt with professionally, with empathy. I'd argue quickly, but that's a personal belief. Some people want to take their time, and I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong, but I do think addressing these things quite quickly is key. And sort of looking forwards, so the future landscape part of the conversation, where do you see the sector going over the coming years? And I guess how's that going to affect you, Alexis? What's on your mind when you look forwards over the next 3-5 years or so?
We talk about the tech sector in general here, isn't it? You can't start answering that question without saying the buzzword at the moment, which is AI.
I'm going to write it down on the wall.
Christ, I hear it, I say it, I hear it, I say it, I digest it. It's all everywhere for everyone nowadays. And I'm a big hater of the buzzwords. Like the big data was the buzzword. The dematerialized journal were the buzzword.
Digital
AI
transformation.
is not a big word. Digital transformation. Don't get me on with this one. Digital transformation. It's IT transformation. It's process evolution. You just put the word digital to make everybody happy in front of it. So you can't not regard the fact that AI is in front of us. And yes, it's a buzzword, but it's definitely here to stay. And there's multiple angles. There's multiple angles in that. You got generative AI, you know, that's really going to help you with creating new model and help you resolving complex problem, like creativity is a good one, like this podcast. You know, for me, I think this is one of the area where generative AI has a big place to play. You got automations, you know, on everything you do nowadays. And AI is also going to be a big helper coming there. How to get all your Excel file into one pipeline process to get an output. How do I get that done? You know, I saw an image very recently, and it'd be great to put it almost on the side of this podcast at one point. There is a Stack Overflow, which is a website for developers in which there's, you know, how to develop things, how to write that piece of code. And there was a nice picture where you get the Stack Overflow usage over time, and suddenly the arrival of AI overlapped with that. Right. And you could see the usage of Stack Overflow like this from the moment ChatGPT got very active for developer.
Wow.
And nowadays, this is where information is for developer. It's not about, you know, searching for hours on end online to find information. Like, ChatGPT, give me a routine on how to write this, and there it is, copy, paste, done. So this is oversimplification, obviously, but I'm a big believer of data in this kind of things. And you look at the landscape, and you can clearly see there is a downward trend in usage of some specific specialist website information, sharing of information. And that's for me the really bad things about AI is the spirit of community that existed in his website, helping one another, finding the right solution, the mindset, cog-willing sort of thinking. That is one thing that's going to go away. But we can talk about a lot of other stuff, like the metaverse for me is another one. It's about creating more immersive experience, and we can talk about, I work in mining, having a headset that remote control automatically a drone that go onto underground on a shaft that has collapsed. Is it safe for human to get in there? Probably not. But a drone, whatever the price is better than losing a human.
Absolutely.
Do that. You can have a VR headset where you can turn your head around and see with the camera exactly what's happening. Commercial shopping experience, micro learning experience is the same.
Yeah.
We don't talk about tech learning experience here, but if you take example in life science, how to handle product, how to do your job in a safe environment using tools that go for life science. Why do you do that on a video? Do it in an immersive experience, give hands to people to play that. You go to a shop, it's the same. How do you set up your bag of cosmetic in front of the door of the shop rather than sending a photo? Why don't you do it online? Onboarding experience of employee need to be done also this way. So I'm a big believer that the metaverse sounds like a bit of a buzzword. It's still quite a lot of a buzzwords, but with the time, this is where our children are going to be like, why didn't you guys do it like that?
I think Mark Zuckerberg's a very big fan of metaverse, and he's sort of sticking to his guns, even though I think it's being quite fairly slow to catch on actually. But it seems like you're of the same mind as Mark Zuckerberg and
I can see I can see in a way what he's seeing in that as a vision. I definitely can see that. The other one where I don't see, because it's me, it's maybe my conservative things, is NFTs and cryptos as an example. I don't hold any crypto. I don't hold any NFC. I do not understand why somebody a couple of weeks ago paid 36 million for a banana attached on the wall. Do you remember this story?
I do. I
bet you NFTs are going to be created out of that.
They will.
Crypto, I don't get it either. I genuinely don't understand the point of putting money on something which is more gambling than real for me. I can't pay my coffee for in crypto. So that's another one that I genuinely don't like there. But I think 2-3 days ago, we talked about also the new quantum processor of Google, who've been able to resolve in literally a matter of minutes a problem not resolvable by PC over 45 at the 46.0 year to resolve in literally a couple of seconds. This is the kind of things that excite me a lot. Complex math problem to be resolved. Drugs, sequencing of our genome, finding solution to problem we don't even know yet. That's the piece that really interests me. Quantum computing is really one that I find super exciting. But I think the last one we cannot leave, the last one we cannot not talk about for me is sustainability and green tech. We work in West Africa where, mining is not super clean. It's not an easy environment to be sustainable in. We really work hard towards that. And it's really about creating business and technological models that bring better tech. Tech is consuming a lot of electricity, creating a lot of heat, etc. Do a lot of waste product. Laptops get tired quickly, particularly in dusty and heaty condition. Your phone is going to the bin. I was listening to the BBC yesterday mentioning, the vapes thing. I don't understand that whatsoever. But the non-rechargeable vapes, the disposable one, they are at the tune of 41 million a day in this country. Things we don't even have a recycling route for whatsoever. So this is what keeps my mind also focused on the tech side. Is how can we create tech that is greener, cleaner, deliver value for society, and bring also digital inclusivity. Because I work in West Africa where the education level is different, the socioeconomic context is different, the politics is different. That's what really keeps me up when I get there. Is can we do a cyber program with local communities? Can you, instead of recycling our laptops, can we clean them properly and give them back to the local community? That is interesting. Because the next Steve Jobs is not in this country, I bet you. He's in West Africa. He's in Africa somewhere.
You bring up a very interesting point. I work with individuals in the sort of green ops space and FinOps space, and we regularly talk about the impact of AI on and the increased kind of cloud usage on environment, I think it's only, AI will only increase the amount of consumption of cloud and, storage resources, which obviously then is hugely impacting the environment. So, and there are a number of people actually who are looking at this from a framework perspective, into putting in place kind of processes to manage this. And it's an incredibly fascinating space. I did ask one of the guys that I was working with, in terms of measuring the impact on the environment, and because some of the metrics are like carbon tons, and you don't know what 500 carbon tons is. So I asked him, can we not just kind of come up with something that kind of gives us how many seconds have we added onto the doomsday clock if we implemented this? And his answer was really fascinating. It sort of was real-time feedback for me, but he was like, humans are so arrogant to think that the doomsday clock refers to the earth. It doesn't. The doomsday clock actually is really only for people. Like, we're not the planet will still be here. We'll just make it completely uninhabitable for us. So I think the fact that you're thinking about it, it's at the forefront of your mind in terms of using cleaner tech in your industry and in your role at the moment, I think that's extremely encouraging to see. Yeah.
I'm a parent.
Yes.
I'm a dad of a boy and a girl. I think you're never as conscious about your footprint until you get kids.
Yeah.
That's the moment you're like, well, leave something behind. They will be here to have to deal with this problem.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to reference that, but for those folks who are early on in their career, or even, kids who are about to enter the world of work in the coming years, what advice would you give them in terms of future-proofing their careers, or being prepared and ready for what the world of work will look like when they enter it?
We touched on it earlier. For me, it's about embracing lifelong learning.
Okay.
There are some career probably where, you learn at school, you apply on a day-to-day basis, and you can live lifelong with that. Your career will be fine.
Yeah.
It's not much anymore like that. Let's be real. It's probably not much anymore. I think particularly career in tech. I mean, everybody who watches podcast, if they open, a book or the newspaper, etc., can see the pace of things. And that's what personally I see the most over 25 years of career. I start my career, the internet was bubbling nicely, literally. So it's really about that. It's about being ready for, embrace the diversity of learning. Don't embrace just the idea of, I'm a tech person, I'm going to read about tech, I'm going to work on tech. And you're going to nicely put yourself in a nice little vertical, which is, I'm a project manager, I'll be a project manager, and next step will be a senior project manager, and then a potentially maybe a PMO head.
Yeah.
Well, you want to access the next level. There's a moment where you realize there's a first glass ceiling that hits you. What we talked about earlier, the business acumen, etc., but also the diversity of knowledge. So when you got a conversation with with a CFO, with a CEO, you don't talk about tech right away. You start by saying, I've learned that about your industry. We in mining, a CEO has basically been put behind bars in Mali a couple of weeks ago because they have a challenge with the states around tax.
Wow.
And if you don't hear about that, it's a good kickoff of conversation. What is your stance on that? How do you feel about it? Are you operating in this area? You work in retail, I see a lot of shops closing in the area in which you are. How do you deal with that problem? How do you approach the financial problem of estates management? It's very expensive to keep store that you own on the floor. So diversity of learning for me is very important. Being able to talk about something else than tech, because that's the reality. And I'll say it on and on again to young people. Nobody cares. As it has become easy, we said it earlier, they don't care about it because it's easy. It feels very easy. If you want to bring them to the table and have this conversation about complexity, you need to speak their language. Cultivate adaptability and resilience. It's one of the
within yourself.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
it's everybody wake up in the morning feeling like, oh, my day's crap yesterday. I don't want to go back to that. Well, get a bit of grit and get back to it, because that's the reality. The world owe you nothing. Your organization owe you nothing. Get back to work. I love this philosophy of just one more days, like some of people that did, try to fight addiction. drugs or alcohol or whatever. They just say, you know what, I was really tempted to drink last night, but I didn't. I just say to myself, until tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow. And the next day in the morning, repeat the same. I love this philosophy applied to your resilience on daily basis also. Yeah. You got a smack yesterday. It was hard. You failed. There was a problem. You know it's going to wait for you when you get back to work. Christ, is the slumber. We're in winter in London. It's hard in the underground. It's cold outside. It's grey. All of that is just excuses. Wake up and get back to it. Grind. That's the reality. You need to build up this resilience on get on with problems and get things done. And there is a comfort in a way in sitting like that. You need to break that. But with the time, you will realize that actually the comfort is on getting back onto it. What is your today problem is your star of tomorrow. Because you fix a problem, a big one, like you resolve something that was in the shoe of your CEO for a couple of months. It just come to tell you, that's that problem. How can you resolve it? That was stuff to do. And then you spend a week on it. You're like, just get a solution. Resolve. You go and see him. He's like, you know what? That guy, I will remember it. That guy, I will remember it. That's my kind of people I try to recruit. Somebody I said, you know what? I have this problem. I say it only once. The person tells me, yep, no problem. I'll take care of it. Don't hear about it for 2 weeks. Guys come back 2 weeks later saying, it's fixed.
That word. I'll do that.
Do I need to check? No, it's done. It's fixed. Any no problem since. Documented, share with people, problem fixed. Next. Give me another one. I want that person. That's really what I want. Another 2 things. Critical thinking. Challenge your own biases all the time. And this is one of probably the biggest lessons learned I had after my 2-3 second job after moving out of single contributor is your vision of things is your vision of things. Great. Fantastic. It's great that you have an opinion as a leader. Nobody cares. Your team don't care. The business don't care. Your job is not there. Your job is pulling the opinions of multiple people and make it work together. That's why we talked about the view on people earlier. And that's why it's a big passion of mine. I love the book of Brené Brown around heartful leadership. Get in a rumble with people, get around the table, knock your heads together, have a drink after. Obviously, stay friends out of it. But in the room, we accept the fact that we can bump heads together, disagree with people. That includes me, but that includes my team. The last thing I want is a bunch of yes men in the room waiting for me to say what needs to be done. That's not my job. I used to say it all the time. This is my knowledge, and this is your knowledge, plus another one, plus another one. So if I sum up the knowledge of my team, my knowledge is small. Even if I divide it by cybersecurity, PMO, enterprise architecture, whatever it is, the accumulation of their knowledge is always going to be bigger than mine. So, sorry, if I take out my bias for a minute of this is how I see the way we should resolve this problem, it's important to let your team sometimes guide them, coach them in getting in the direction you want, but let them find a solution. Be critical thinking also with your business and help them developing a sense of what the solution should be. And they are part of it. And the last one, I think for me, which never should be underestimated, and we live in an hyper-socialized era right now where, Snapchat, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. You name it. And by mentioning Facebook, I'm still probably an old person here. But let's take Instagram and all the rest. Personal brand. Having, you need not to forget that when you exit, you see a lot of people nowadays recording their exit from the job, HR calling them, etc. Never forget that this job is the end of one job. It's another one that starts after. Your personal brand is really important publicly, but also within the organization. Adhering to your word, delivering, say what you're going to do, make it happen. Be the person that you want to be. Having a good personal brand is really important. And develop it. Like coming to this podcast for me, it's important. It helps you, but it's also important for me. Developing your personal brand is around that. Be a thought leader in a subject. Talk about it. Write an article on LinkedIn. Start a blog. And even if nobody reads it, you're going to learn with it. You're going to learn to write. You're going to learn storytelling. You're going to learn when do I publish it? When people are going to see it. You guys are much more knowledgeable about that. But you know what? I had a blog for a couple of years. Never anyone read it. You won't find it. It disappeared. But what I mean about it is it's a huge lessons learned in an area which is not mine at all. But God, it contributes to my personal brand with the time because there's still leftover of this article and people connect with me around it. And that's value in the long term.
But it develops your skills as well. And I think like journaling is also a very well recognized tactic of developing yourself or an awareness of self and developing your thoughts. Becoming a thought leader isn't going to happen unless you spend some time putting, pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and actually kind of wrestling with your own ideas, opinions, and thoughts and trying to shape them into something that is world consumable. So I can see how that. I'd love to read that blog. Actually, you should send us a link after.
No,
we can link it to the podcast.
I wouldn't, because it comes to the point of what we talked earlier, the mirror of a mentor, etc. I look back on it and think like, wow.
Yeah.
It's what I said earlier, the anchor back in the past.
Yeah.
This is what I've done before. This is where I am today.
Yeah.
That show you a little bit this journey that you've been through and what you're able to do now.
Yes.
I think it's in developing your personal brand, you get this feeling of that's the journey. That's where I am right now.
Yeah. I think the anchor as well, I really, really like that point. And I'd just like to kind of reiterate it here. In developing your personal brand, actually using a tactic like an anchor of this is what I'm capable of only really helps to support the personal brand. And I think it's more, we are the sum total of the thoughts that we think about ourselves. And I think if you remind yourself of all the things that you've achieved, you get a really nice picture of, somebody who's competent, capable, and that will only encourage you to kind of drive yourself forward even more, to step outside of your comfort zone, to seek feedback, to get better. If you have a self-confidence in who you are, you probably will be inclined to fail more because it's not devastating. Because actually, what you have is an anchor that says, I can do stuff, I can deliver things.
The seeking feedback will help you not using this anchor as this is a defining part of my career. This is who I am.
Yeah.
The seeking feedback will always help you looking like, that's great.
Yeah.
But forward.
Onwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Onward. Alexis, thank you so much for joining us. I think that was insightful, honest. Particularly the individual contributor into that career journey that you mentioned, the mentor, the mirror, the different areas where you can find a mentor. Particularly, I think the having that anchor as a program that you can go back to and go, in hindsight, wow. So I'm not sure it gets much bigger and much more complicated than Novartis. So to go back, I can be that person. I am that person. I love the speedboat analogy. So there aren't, as I said, many businesses the size of Novartis. So to go, wow, if we can achieve that there and deliver in that environment with that complexity and bring that together, that's incredible. I'm a huge personal branding advocate. That's in some senses a big part of our role in business. But I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. I'm sure people are happy to connect on LinkedIn with you. Follow, like, and retweet. But thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful. Thank you.